Do you dream about changing the world? Do you dream about making it big? How far will your dreams take you? Let's talk about the Silicon Dreams. This is me, RJ Shara. Hello, everyone. This is RJ Shara, and I am hosting another episode of the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM. Today, on this episode with me, I have BJ Arun. BJ Arun is the president of TiE, or the Indus Entrepreneurs, and we are going to spend some good quality time on the episode today talking about TiE and talking about BJ's journey with TiE. Welcome to the show, BJ.
Thank you, Shara, for having me. I'm a big fan of your station and your program specifically, so I'm looking forward to the next 25 to 30 minutes with you.
Thank you, BJ. So am I. So, BJ, for the benefit of our listeners here, why don't we start by getting the answer to one question? Who is BJ Arun?
Okay. All right. So I'm from the south of India. I'm actually from Bangalore. And I got to the United States in the late 80s. So I got here in 89, good 30 years ago. And, like most immigrants, I had to first work for a couple of years to, get my green card and all of that stuff. Back then it was a couple of years. It wasn't like the 10 or 15 years that it takes now.
Yeah.
But I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. And so my very first company that I founded was in Bangalore University when I was still in my engineering college. I was pursuing computer science. And so in my second year of engineering, I started my first company, which was actually building telecom equipment. There's a very famous gentleman called Sam Pitroda, and he had founded something called CDOT, Center for the Development of Telematics. So he had come back from the United States to India, and he was doing that. And I just even couldn't wait to graduate. So I got started. And by the time I graduated, I actually, believe it or not, had about 100 employees, which is pretty unusual because if you think about it in the 80s, for somebody to be doing that. And so, so I've always, had the entrepreneurial bug. And so even when I came to the US, I just couldn't wait to become an entrepreneur, but I had to sort of, get my green card, et cetera. And so I started my journey in 1994 by founding a company called California Digital. And what California Digital did was it was actually in the hardware business. So we started by building very high-end servers. So these are multi-processor servers. And by the way, that's also sort of around when TiE got started. So TiE got started in 1993, just a year before I founded my first US company. And so I had been attending TiE ever since 93 or 94. So I've been a part of TiE has been a part of my journey as an entrepreneur for as long as it has been around, and so I have benefited tremendously from it. And so so what California Digital did was we built these servers, as I was telling you, and with time we started figuring out, okay, how do you add more value to hardware? And so then we started slapping a Linux operating system on it. So we were building these 1U, 2U rack-mounted servers. And eventually we started building what's known as high-performance clusters, or HPC. So these are massively parallel computers, literally sometimes with thousands or tens of thousands of CPUs. And these are used for things like graphical rendering. So in fact, back then, one of the movies called Titanic was actually built or it's rendered on one of our farms. And similarly, the human genome, right? Dr. Craig Venter, he actually mapped the human genome on a computer that our company built. And so that's where I started my entrepreneurial journey, and that was back in 94. And of course, there's been no looking back, because once the entrepreneurial bug bites you, you can't go and just work for a job anymore. You just keep going from strength to strength.
That is true. And you have to pick up yourself and dust yourself up if you see any lows, but you have to keep marching forward. And that's an amazing journey. In fact, even today, when I think about it, parallel processing, what you just mentioned, it's so powerful. In all the transactions that we are dealing with today, be it blockchain, the cryptocurrency transactions, the stock markets, or as you mentioned, you have already mentioned the field of visuals, GPUs, parallel processing power, that makes a lot of difference. And we have come a far way since 90s, and the processing power has become cheaper, but as humans we are constantly on a journey to find ways to make things faster. So what you mentioned is relevant even now.
It is, and but we were pioneering this stuff because before we built, actually the largest supercomputer that we built was called Thunder, and we built Thunder for the Lawrence Livermore Labs, and it was a $10 million sale to them. So it was a pretty large
Wow.
sale for a small company like ours. But the second fastest supercomputer in the world cost $500 million. So many orders of magnitude more expensive because these were built by the Crays and the IBMs, and these were what's called monolithic designs. So they had to build them from, just design one large supercomputer. Whereas
Mhm.
what we did is we harnessed the power of just, off-the-shelf computers. So we literally took thousands, or in the case of Thunder, 10,000 off-the-shelf components, and then built these massive racks of computers, which operated just as fast as a $500 million computer. So it's
Wow.
pretty
So
groundbreaking for its time.
that is what innovation is, right? You don't have to look for creating something crazy all the way from scratch. You just have to look at things, approach them from a different angle. And that's what innovation is all about. So thank you. BJ, I know you have referred to your journey with TiE. Before I ask you any more questions about TiE, let me ask you, what is TiE?
Okay. So TiE actually, was founded. I mean, the original name of TiE was the Indus Entrepreneurs, TIE. But since then, we've moved away from that because, well, we've always been inclusive. But now what's happened is TiE has grown to a point where what we represent today is fostering entrepreneurship. So we are the world's largest not-for-profit fostering entrepreneurship. And what fostering entrepreneurship means is that we actually help inspire, we help educate, and then we help with everything from funding to networking to help entrepreneurs like what I was 20 some years ago to get off the ground. And so in my own journey, right? So California Digital was my first company, and then I went on to build a couple more companies, which we can talk along the way. But in every part of my journey, TiE really helped me. So when I started going in '94 as somebody, and when I was in my 20s, I think about it, I was in my late 20s back then, and I used to look up to people like Dr. Suhas Patil, who had founded Cirrus Logic, right? He was a professor, but then Cirrus Logic was a chip company, and they had taken it public. Or if you look at Vinod Khosla, right? He had co-founded Sun Microsystems, again, household name powerhouse hardware company. So Vinod Khosla was the CEO of Sun Micro. Or if you look at somebody like Kanwal Rekhi, Kanwal had founded a company called Excelan, which he then got acquired by Novell, and I think for a while he was even president of Novell. So back then there were so few people of Indian origin who had broken through the glass ceiling that for me as a young entrepreneur, all of these people really helped inspire me, saying that they came from the same land I did. They look like I do, and if they can do it, I can do it. And so, the inspiration, I can't tell you, and particularly when, today it's very different, right? Today it's almost like if you're of Indian origin and you're not at the CXO level of you're not doing well, people look at you funny and say, what's wrong with you? How come you're not like, a Satya Nadella or a Shantanu Narayan or Sundar Pichai? So the pendulum has swung the other way where, we have shattered that glass ceiling, right? I mean, today, if you look at almost, I think statistics show that 1 in 3 Silicon Valley companies either has a co-founder or somebody at the CXO level of Indian origin. So we've come a long ways since, the late 80s or early 90s. And TiE, I have absolutely no hesitation in crediting TiE for not only helping me in my entrepreneurial journey, but helping all entrepreneurs in the Valley. And it's just done such a phenomenal job. So the first part of it was inspiration. And then once you're inspired and say, okay, I want to now, aspire to do something, then you need knowledge, right? And back then, we're talking pre-internet days. So we had no idea what is a cap table? How do you do fundraising? How do you do all of that stuff? And so the people who came before us and who had done it, and they had done it the hard way, right? They had figured it out. And so we could actually learn from those people. The next part of it is funding, right? So how do again, we were not the entrepreneurial powerhouse as a community that we are today, right? So we had no access to the VCs on Sand Hill Road, or we didn't have any connections to these people. And back then, at best, if you became a manager in your company, it was a big deal, right? And of course, if somebody became a director, it was like, wow, this guy, he or she is a genius. But today it's very different, right? I mean, it's almost like it's a prerequisite that you have somebody on the team, founding team, who is of this sort of background. And so so inspiration, knowledge, funding, right? And so a lot of these people, the early leaders from our community who did well, they actually helped us with funding. And last but not least is the power of the network, right? So if you wanted to find your co-founder, or if you wanted to find your team members, if you wanted to find your customers, all of these people were part of the TiE network. And so it's just an amazing platform. And I really can't sort of credit them enough for helping not only myself, but pretty much most of the successful first crop of entrepreneurs in the Valley.
That is an amazing story to hear. And it talks about how TiE has helped augment the spirit of entrepreneurship, especially in the Southeast Asian community. On that note, what was the inspiration for the founders to start TiE?
Mm-hmm. So I think the founders, what they realized, and these are the days of the glass ceiling, right? I mean, so they realized that a handful of them had made it. And once you have created wealth, right? Once you have made money, you can either sort of do charity where you write checks and you try and say, okay, let me help other people, or you can sort of teach them how to create value themselves, right? It's the thing about giving somebody a fish or teaching them how to fish. And so that's the difference. And so they actually felt that creating value was a noble endeavor. And so they actually said, we can uplift the community by teaching them how to create value. And so that was the basis behind why they came together to do this. And then, of course, I mean, there was no looking back after that. It just caught on like a house on fire, to a point where we have grown to 61 chapters in 14 different countries. And it's such a unique organization that there are some chapters in the world today where there is nobody of Southeast Asian origin in that whole chapter. So if you go to the one in Lisbon, Portugal, they're all Portuguese people. They're like no bases in that chapter at all. But what is sort of the value prop is fostering entrepreneurship. That is universal, right? And while TiE has always been inclusive, but this is resonating across entrepreneurs everywhere. So you can go to Singapore, you can go to the UK, anywhere you go in the world today, there is a TiE chapter. And it's such a benefit, because if one goes, a member or charter member goes from one region to another region, and I need any kind of assistance, I just look up the directory and reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so, or I'm looking for this, or I need a connection here, and it gets done. And that's just, I mean, even these household names that I mentioned to you just now, right? The early founding members like Suhas or Kanwal or Vinod Khosla, etc. We all knew who they were, right? I mean, these were role models. These were people you read about in the newspaper, but there's no way to get connected to them. Whereas if you came to a place like TiE, these same stalwarts were out there actually saying, how can I help you, right? So they were willing and available and making themselves available. So that's something that we just don't have. And I'll just give you another example, right? So we all look up to an Elon Musk or any of these kind of people. Imagine if you could go to an association or go to a platform where these people were hanging around and saying, hey, how can I help you, Shara, with your next venture, right? I mean, wouldn't that be invaluable? That's what TiE has done for the community and for the entrepreneurs.
That is an amazing message that you have here, because in these times, especially as we have all the riots and all the demonstrations around us, and for a good reason, where people are highlighting how they feel discriminated against, a platform like TiE brings people together. And it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in Silicon Valley or you are in a remote place in India. If you have this platform, if you are a member of the platform, you have access to a global community, which is like one big family, supporting each other. The origin of TiE in itself lies in the wishes of the founders to give back to the community. And in doing so, they didn't just want to bring in some material goodness, as in throw in some money and get an organization started, but as you rightly said, they wanted to teach people to fish so that they could create more people like themselves. And that is a that's very inspiring in itself. Now,
And I'm, a beneficiary of that. And so my most recent company, which I exited about 18 months ago, was called
congrats.
July Systems. Thank you. And so July Systems was in customer acquisition and customer engagement using mobile phones and Wi-Fi. And so very quickly, what July Systems' this product does is that if you go into a brick and mortar business, right? So if you go into a store, or if you go into a mall, or if you go to a casino or a hotel, they have no idea today that you are Shara, right? But if they had whereas if you go online, right, you go to Amazon or you go anywhere, they can tell from cookies, etc., who we are and what our previous purchases have been, and they can recommend products or services based on who we are. Imagine if we could do that same thing in brick and mortar establishments. And so that's what July Systems was doing. And so about 18 months ago, we got acquired by Cisco. And Cisco is the world's largest manufacturer of Wi-Fi equipment. They have over a 50% market share. And so this was a very, very good complement to their Wi-Fi equipment, because this software that July was doing was adding value to what Cisco's hardware was doing. And so today, our team is thriving within Cisco. But again, because I'm a business guy, I'm a CEO, right? I'm not a technical guy. So I didn't really need to be with the technical team. They absorbed, the hundreds of technical people and engineering people we had. So my role was redundant. And so post my gardening leave at Cisco, I actually had the time and the resources. And I said it was my time to give back. And so that's why I got elected as president of TiE. And it's a pro bono role, right? It's the elected position. I don't get paid a dime to do this. And it is a pretty demanding role. You have to put in a lot of time and effort. But just like I benefited from those founders 20 some years ago, I just felt it was my time to give back. And so that's why I'm doing what I do today.
You did mention a good point there, which was about TiE being a volunteer-run organization. If I'm not wrong, the chapter at TiE Silicon Valley has just 3 or 4 full-time employees, right? And that is the case for most of the chapters.
That is correct. And of course, this time it's reduced because we are having to do a virtual TiEcon. But when we do an in-person TiEcon, believe it or not, 250 to 300 volunteers come together to put together the content and to do all of this stuff. And if you think about how much you'd have to pay volunteers of that caliber to come together, it would cost millions of dollars, right? Because there's no way we'd be able to hire these people. And they come and willingly they give 3 to 4 months of their time. Of course, they do this in the evenings or weekends, but they just come and volunteer and do this. Similarly, if you take a look at our keynote speakers, right? And so we have people, this year's TiEcon, we have people like Indra Nui, we have people like Dr. Deepak Chopra, or Koslav, who I talked about earlier. All of these people are keynote speakers. Speakers of this caliber get paid speaking fees, anywhere from $75,000 to almost $250,000 in speaking fees. This is what they command. They all come and do this pro bono at TiE. They don't charge us a dime. So again, it's because of the value that this organization has been adding over the years to the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so that's why they do that. And so I think it just, the quality of the organization and the quality of the programming is because people are doing this without any agenda or without any motive. We're just doing this to sort of help and give back.
You're doing this because we are part of a community and you have to give back
Correct.
to the community.
Absolutely. There's no way we could pay somebody to do the quality of programming we do. I mean, it's, people are putting in nights and days doing this stuff, right? I mean, they could just as easily be hanging out with their families or friends or doing other fun stuff, but they all make that sacrifice because, we really believe in this initiative.
Thank you, BJ. And we will talk more about TiEcon on the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM. I'm pretty sure the listeners want to know more about that too. But before we get to TiEcon, I am going to ask you, especially since you have been with TiE since its inception, how has TiE as an organization pivoted since it was founded?
Right. I think this is a very good question, and that's something that we have been sort of spending a fair amount of time trying to figure out, because we have to keep evolving with the times. And as I mentioned, in the early days, we were in the pre-internet, pre-smartphone kind of era, right? And so some of that stuff, like the information or the education, that stuff is now readily available on the internet, right? So we could just go on the net and look for what's a cap table and all of that stuff. We definitely can look that information up. But what is still not possible is the inspiration aspect of it, and the networking aspect of it, and the mentorship aspect of it. That's something you can't go to any MBA school or get anywhere else. And so that's something that those pillars remain strong, and they will continue forever. And so just to come there and get to know the movers and shakers and get to sort of connect with these people, that's what TiE still does. And so now that TiE has become a global platform, we're able to actually help entrepreneurs in different geos. So for example, if you take India, India is, from an entrepreneurial zeal perspective, where the Silicon Valley was maybe 15 years ago. So everybody, and thanks to Prime Minister Modi and his emphasis on entrepreneurship and job creation, etc., everybody today wants to be an entrepreneur in India. And so they are very smart, hardworking people, but what they can benefit from is mentorship. And so this is where even cross chapters, right? So a lot of our charter members from the Silicon Valley chapter, we're actually assigning them as mentors to mentees in many of these fast growing startups from India. So we actually have programs that we do that. The other thing that we've also started doing is that lots of just like the central government, even the state governments in India, they all come here with delegations, right? They come here looking for investments into their state. So you might have the chief minister, or you might have their industries minister or IT minister. They all come here. And while they come here with good intentions, but once they come and they talk to the people and go away, there is really no way to keep following through on that. And so now TiE is also sort of, we have this program called Gateway to Silicon Valley. So a lot of these governments are actually signing up with TiE. And so we are being the conduit for those states, both ways, right? So we are channeling investments and mentors from the United States, from the Silicon Valley to their regions. And likewise, if they have entrepreneurs in their states that they want to send here, we actually have space in our office where they come and they operate from here. We match them up with customers, with mentors, advisors, investors, etc. So that's also a service that we have been providing, and it's being very well received.
Got it. So TiE plays a very pivotal and key role in taking the Silicon Valley secret sauce and spreading that goodness across the globe, right? Especially in developing economies like India. And if I'm not wrong, we have also started chapters in Africa at Nairobi, if I'm not
Correct.
mistaken.
That's correct. Yes. So yes, so we just launched TiE Africa, I think in Jan or Feb of this year, just before the shutdown happened. In fact, some of us even, not me, but I know Kanwal, some of them had even gone for the inauguration of that. And yes, so entrepreneurship has no language, it has no region, it's everywhere. And so if we could sort of help foster entrepreneurship, we're doing it anywhere and everywhere. And so it's really been, I think, well received worldwide.
And you did speak about this program, Gateway to Silicon Valley. Besides that, TiE as an organization focuses on which other programs?
Okay. So, we have so many different initiatives, and I'll just highlight some of the, the ones that, are being well received. So, for example, we have something called the TYE, or TiE Young Entrepreneurs. And the TYE, again, is now across different chapters. And we actually mentor high school level students. So we've been taking kids who are in high school and teaching them about the rudiments of entrepreneurship, seeding their minds with that. And it is mind-boggling to see the kind of business ideas these young people are coming up with. And so then I think, last year for the finals, I think it was in MIT in Boston. So the finalists, they all went to Boston. And so we do support TiE young entrepreneurs. And then we also have, an initiative for DEI, so diversity and inclusion. So that's again a major focus, and it has been for some time. And even for programs, I mean, right now, the current sort of sensitivities around the Black Lives Matter movement, etc. But even over the years, right, even with our programs like TiEcon, etc., we have actually been reaching out to the inner city kids, African American kids, and allowing them to attend these programs at no cost. And so this is something that we have been doing because we do realize that they are underserved. They don't have enough role models. They don't have enough people guiding them, right? And so we are actually bringing a fairly decent percentage of these people into our programs. Some of our chapters, a good 30 to 40%, are actually, for example, TiE Atlanta, I was looking at some statistics today. A good 30% of all of the entrepreneurs they help are African Americans in the Atlanta chapter. Similarly, in Oregon, they're doing a wonderful job. And so it's really, I think, we are putting an emphasis on women, on minorities. Similarly with the women, even like if you think about Southeast Asian women, right? Not enough of them are entrepreneurs. I mean, if you look at the number of men versus women. So we're really trying hard to bridge that gap. And so even in a lot of our leadership programs, et cetera, we're ensuring that women are getting the adequate representation. So these are some of the programs that we do. And then, and there's, so many things. So for example, we have another program called Lunch with Movers and Shakers. So what we do is we actually secure time with the CEO of, a large public company. And for example, Shantanu Narayan at Adobe, he had hosted a lunch for about 22 of the people from TiE. And so we actually open it up and say that what sort of entrepreneurs would benefit with a couple of hours with Shantanu, right? And so then we screen them and then we invite them to this luncheon. And most people can never aspire to sit and have lunch with somebody like Shantanu and Adobe. But these are something that, thanks to the power of the TiE network, we're able to do. And so, we literally have like one program a week going on. So we average about 50 programs a year. And so there's something or the other happening all the time. And so it's just, there are just too many to list, but they're just, people can go to tiesv.org. All of these are listed, and, I would highly recommend people come and take advantage of it. And this year, we, again, our annual membership is a nominal $150. And TiEcon usually is an additional fee over that. But this year, because of COVID, we have included all of the TiEcon series of events that we're doing at no additional cost to members. So they can actually attend every one of our weekly as well as TiEcon series for just the cost of the annual membership. And that's something which we're doing. And even the $150, if somebody has any issues with that, they can actually write to us, and then if they have a problem financially, we're able to help them and waive them, etc. So we're really, it's just, the idea is it's truly a not-for-profit, and we're looking to help other people.
It is true that it's a non-profit, and there are a lot of non-profit organizations, but not many really act on the intentions with which they were formed. So TiE, it has been around for over 25 years, and it has just evolved in that duration. And as one of the volunteers for TiE, I can attest to the fact that it is a pretty nice community to be in. And it's not just for entrepreneurs, that's what I feel, because I have heard so many other stories of people just getting a boost in their career pathways because of their affiliation with the community. And it could be in switching their career paths, or even just getting a nice place in a different company, which they probably got referred to through a TiE Connect. So I feel as an ecosystem, it does a lot to help people in their professional careers, and also, of course, in their journey as an entrepreneur. And the two programs that you focused on, uh, diversity and inclusion, which also includes women, and I know you spoke a lot about being inclusive of our fellow Black brothers and sisters, and the TiE Young Entrepreneurs. I feel these programs are so powerful. As a society, if we think that by just advancing a certain segment of the society, we can move ahead, that's never going to happen, because this entire society is like one human body. You can't just take care of only your hand or just your heart and neglect the rest of your body. So you have to include everyone and move along as a unit. And Thai young entrepreneurs, these these kids, these children, they are the future of our globe. And I am so surprised to see how much more aware they are about the environment, about social challenges than I was when I was a kid. And platforms like Thai, they just help accelerate this comprehension and also provide these kids with a platform to come and connect with people outside their own circle and gives them a way to advance their thoughts and ideas. So what Thai is doing, I feel that's really valuable. And as we have been talking about it, it being a nonprofit organization just amplifies that value all the more because no one is making money out of it. And yet this is an example of a community where people give and take, and it's a nice amicable relationship with where everyone wants everyone else around them to advance further. Now, BJ, you spoke and we have alluded to TiEcon a few times in this conversation. So before we wrap up our interview, would you please tell our audience of the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM, what is TiEcon? And you did mention some of the guests for this year, but also this year TiEcon has pivoted into a virtual, all virtual 3 event series. So if you could speak about TiEcon, its history, and also what is TiEcon doing this year, then that would be great.
Sure. So, like TiEcon has again grown from strength to strength. And so, like last year or the last couple of years, and we've been doing this for over 20 years at the Santa Clara Convention Center. And we attract between 5,000 and 7,000 people from literally all over the globe, not just the Valley, but people fly in. And because there is no such event in the world where entrepreneurs come and then they, sort of get educated, get inspired, get to network. It's just a fabulous, fabulous experience. Now, this year, because of COVID, we're not able to do, it's not a good idea to have 5,000, 7,000 people under one roof. And anyway, with the travel restrictions and stuff, people are not able to come, etc. So what we have done is we have broken it up into a series. And so we have two, one in June, June 24th, one in July, July 22nd. And those two we're calling as the Road to TiEcon. And then the TiEcon itself is September 2nd and 3rd. And the reason why we have spread it out is, what we have realized is that, with the virtual sort of programming, it's very difficult for attendees to sit in front of a computer screen for 8-10 hours a day, right? It's very difficult. We don't have the attention span, and it's tough, right? Especially if you're stuck at home, you've got your kids running around or your pets or whatever else, you're doing. And so we've broken it up into more manageable 3-hour chunks. And so, we've got, broken it down into 3 hours. And so, for example, on June 24th, which is next Wednesday, we start at 7:15 in the morning. And it is a little early for the West Coast, but we're also trying to accommodate people in the Far East, in India, et cetera. And if you think about 3 hours for them, I mean, if they start at 7:30 or 8 p.m., it does get pretty late. And so, so we're starting with 2 grand keynotes back to back. And so we have Dr. Deepak Chopra, followed by Vinod Costa. And then, of course, we have lots of other panels. So we have 3 breakout sessions. We have a blockchain session. We have a fintech session. We have a security track. And so these 3 tracks. And so this is pretty content rich. A lot of effort has gone in. We have some fabulous speakers. And then similarly in July 24th as well. So July, we actually have the CEO of Niti Aayog. His name is Amitabh Kant. And Niti Aayog is the new name for what used to be the Planning Commission. And so again, he is India's top government honcho for entrepreneurship and commerce and industry, etc. And so Amitabh will be in conversation with again another stalwart from India. We're not quite sort of publishing the name yet. It is going to be a surprise, but it is going to be a household name, and that's the July 24th. And then of course for the grand finale TiEcon, we have Indra Nui. She again needs no introduction. A woman of Indian origin who's been CEO of PepsiCo. I think it's just we have a fabulous lineup. So that's the reason why we have broken it down into a series of 3. So it's sort of much more manageable and palatable in terms of smaller chunks of time.
So how does one benefit from TiEcon? And you mentioned that typically TiEcon is an additional fee. This year, TiEcon passes also include the opportunity to get a membership into Thai Silicon Valley. So for anyone in the audience of the Silicon Dreams and Radios in the 1170 AM listening to this interview, if they are thinking about why should they attend TiEcon and what is the benefit of becoming a Thai member, which I hope they probably grasped through this interview, through your own journey. However, if you wanted to project it out to them, what would your answer be?
So I think, early on, when you talked about not-for-profit and nobody is making money, I do want to make a couple of corrections. One is we are a not-for-profit, but we are not a charity, right? So unlike most of the other not-for-profits where they're helping the poor and the underserved, we're not doing that. We're actually helping create value. And the other correction I wanted to make is somebody is making money, and that is our members, because they're
Yes.
creating companies and they're enhancing their careers. And to your point about, you don't necessarily have to start your company or be an entrepreneur. Even if you're working in a company, I refer to those people as entrepreneurs, right? So inside the company, you could be working in a large company, but these kind of inspirations, these kind of skills, these kind of connections, even if you're looking for your next job, right? You got connected to the CTO or this, chief marketing officer or whatever sector you're in. I mean, that's so much better than just sending your resume in cold and not knowing anybody, etc. And so it's just I think something that everybody will benefit from. And so for the cost of $150 annual membership, if you're getting to attend 40, 50 of these virtual events at no additional cost, I mean, it's a fabulous value. And all it takes is one good connection or one good inspiration to change somebody's life, right? And if you have 40 or 50 opportunities, I mean, at some point, right? I mean, 150 bucks, I mean, a lot of us, sometimes even spend that on a fancy dinner, right? So it's just a very nominal cost and it's a huge ROI, right? It's a huge, huge ROI. And so I just think that it's something that people should make the leap and they will not regret it. I mean, think about it, right? 20 some years ago, I'm giving 2 years of my life to doing this at no cost. I mean, I must have got my $150 worth many, many times over, right? If you think about it. So,
BJ, thank you. I am sure there would be listeners of this show who would be inspired by the conversation that we just had. Before we wrap up the interview, for the aspiring entrepreneurs out there, and I also loved the term that you used, entrepreneurs, people within the organization who are trying to make a difference. So for the entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurs out there, is there a message that you want to give to them? Not as part of TiE, but just as BJ Arun, based on your own journey and all the successes that you have achieved so far.
So one of my favorite sayings, Shara, is that you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And what that means is if you don't even sort of aim and shoot, right, you're guaranteed to miss it. So at least you take a shot at your dream and then you have some chance of getting there. But if you don't even make that first move, you're not going to get there. And that first move, at least in this case, and I don't want to be like pitching like a used salesperson, but at least come to these events, right? I mean, come and see and benefit and learn, right? So make the first move. Otherwise, one could be an armchair entrepreneur for the rest of their lives, right? They could just sit in their armchair and say, I could do this or I could have done that. But make the first move. And that's very, very important. Take that first shot, because if you don't take that first shot, you're guaranteed to miss your aspiration and your goal. So that's what I would leave. And Shara, this has been such a joy in talking with you. I will actually kind of sweeten this thing a little more for you. So I will actually have our team send you a discount code for listeners of Radio Zindagi. And so this way you can sort of share this with your listeners, and this way they'll get a few dollars off, even the $150 membership that we have. So I will make that available to you and your listeners.
Thank you, BJ. That's a wonderful offer. And I think you hit the bull's eye with that quote that you just mentioned. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So thank you for extending this opportunity of providing a discount code for people who might still be mulling it over, because now they don't have any reason to just sit on the chair. As you said, you have to take those shots, because that is what distinguishes a dreamer from an achiever. You can dream as big as you want to, but you have to take that first step to start walking towards your achievement. BJ, thank you for your time and for all of this knowledge that you've shared with listeners of the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM. It was a pleasure having you here, and I hope listeners of Radio Zindagi will be attending TiEcon. We are broadcasting this on Monday, and the first Road to TiEcon event featuring Deepak Chopra MD and Vinod Khosla is on Wednesday. So go ahead, book your tickets, and I will be sharing the code with you. Thank you, BJ. We appreciate the time you spent with us.
It's been my privilege. Thank you so much, Shara.
Thank you.